Welcome to the free ExcelCEO Excel lesson. My name is Jim Klein and I am the founder and developer of the ExcelCEO system of Microsoft Excel and Access Training. This free Excel training video is an actual lesson taught in Chapter 7 of the Excel course. I decided to use this exercise as the example as it teaches how to use some functions that most people don't know how to use, but that can make your life a whole lot easier. In fact, I showed this exercise to a financial consultant who had an MBA from Princeton, and he told me that I showed him in 10 minutes how he could solve a problem that was supposed to take him 3 days to do. In this exercise, I'll show you how to use a number of text functions. Text functions are basically things you can do with text strings, and they're very easy to use. If you want to work along with this exercise, you can download the file at www.kleinsys.com/names.xls. So if you just type that address into the address bar of your browser, hit enter, you'll go straight to the file and you can work along with me. With that said, let's get started. What you see on your screen is a list of names. These names are in a last name, comma, space, first name format. Your job is to write one formula that breaks apart the name and puts it back together in a first name, space, last name format. At the onset, that doesn't look like too hard of a project, but once you get into it, it gets progressively harder. Some people tell me, Jim, all you have to do is select the column, do a text to columns procedure and split it apart, then write the formula that concatenates or puts back together the first and last names in the right format. While this is true, I don't recommend doing it. Typically, when you have data like this, it comes from a database, like SQL Server or Access, Oracle, or SAP. At some point in the future, you may want to update the data and perform the analysis over again. When that happens, you'll have to do that text to columns procedure all over again. On the other hand, if you write a formula around the data, you can refresh the data as many times as you want, and the formulas will automatically show the data in the correct format. So I'll now show you a number of text functions that will result in a pretty impressive formula. These formulas aren't really hard to write if you break it into pieces. So let's start with the first piece. The first and easiest thing to do is to break out the last name. The first name in the list is Bison, comma, space, Raymond. To break out the last name, we can use a left function. The left function returns a number of characters starting from the left. So let's title this column, column B, as last name. For this first one, we would write the left function like this, equals left, open parentheses, A2, since that's the cell we're referring to, comma, 6, as there are 6 characters in the last name. Close parentheses and enter. And we see that it works. We're extracting the word bison. Now this works great for every last name that has 6 characters in it, but it doesn't work for the names that have more or less than 6 characters. Let's copy that formula down to show you. Hopefully you already know about the Data Fill button. The Data Fill button is the small black box at the bottom right-hand corner of the cell. So if you click that, and let's drag it all the way down to Betty here, and release, it'll copy the formula all the way down. Now as you can see, some of the last names are cut off, and some include the comma. We really can't use that. What we really need is a way to know how many characters to include for each of the last names. We need some kind of an anchor, or a character that appears in every name. So, what is the one character that appears in all of these names? It's the comma. If we could find what position the comma is in every name, then we could more easily break out the last names. We can use the find function for that. So, let's insert a column over here in column B. So I'll click on column B, click on the Home tab, Insert Sheet Columns. We'll go ahead and call this column Find, as we're going to use a find function. We go down to cell B2, and we'll write our formula. Equals find, open parentheses. What are we going to find? We're going to find a comma. We enclose it in quotes. The next argument is within text. What is the text that we're trying to find the comma in? It's going to be A2. End parentheses, and enter. Let's adjust the width of our column here, make it a little bit more readable. And we see that the comma in the name Bison, comma, space, Raymond is in the 7th spot. Let's go ahead and copy this formula down. And we see that the formula works perfectly. We've been able to find the comma now in every one of these cells. Now, let's edit the formula in the last name column. Instead of going over 6 characters, we'll go ahead and delete the 6. What we're going to do is we're going to refer to the formula in column B. So we're going to say B2 minus 1 and then enter. The last name will always consist of all the characters up to the comma less 1. That's why we have to write the minus 1. Now we can copy this formula down. In fact, let's put our cursor right over there, double click, and it works perfectly. Give us a little bit more space there over on the last name column. Great. Now we have to extract the first name. So let's click on cell D1, type first name, enter, go down there. Now, since we used a left function for the last name, what function do you think we'll use for the first name? If you said the right function, you're absolutely wrong. That would be the logical choice, so don't beat yourself up too much for saying that. But if you try it, you'll see that it's much more complex than that. Instead of explaining the complexity of using a right function in this exercise, I'll just tell you the one we'll use, which is the mid function. The mid function takes characters from the middle of a text string and goes to the right. You determine the starting point and the ending point. Since we already know where the comma is, we know that we have to start at the comma plus 2 spaces. You have to remember that a space is a character and you have to account for it in your formulas. So, let's go ahead and write the mid function. So we click on cell D2 and we'll type equals mid open parentheses. We'll click on cell A2, comma, where do we want to start? We want to start with the number that's in B2 plus 2, comma, and how many characters out do we go now? I don't know anyone with a first name that has more than 100 characters in it. So let's just use that number, 100, close parentheses, and enter. And we've got the name Raymond in here. We'll double click that and you'll see that this formula extracts all of the first names just perfectly. Now we'll just put the first name and last name together in column E as the full name. So let's type full name over there, and we go down to cell E2. This is an easy one. This is a concatenating formula. So what we'll do is type equals the first name, which is in cell D2, ampersand, quote, space, quote, ampersand, click on cell C2, and Raymond, then there's a whole bunch of spaces, Bison. What happened? There's a lot of space in between the first and last name. Now, why did that happen? Let's look at it a little bit. If you click over here on cell A2 and come up in the formula bar, let's just click over here in the formula bar. Okay, you see, after the word Raymond, there's a whole bunch of spaces. You don't notice it when you're working with the names until you get to this point. This happens when databases contain a fixed number of characters, and it adds spaces onto the end of the text string to make up for the characters that don't exist. Spaces can cause big problems for most people, but not for us, since we know how to handle them. To solve this problem, we'll use the trim function. The trim function in Excel takes out all spaces before the text string, after the text string, and all spaces in between words, leaving only one. So let's go back over to our formula. We'll go to the beginning of the formula up here in the formula bar and type trim, open parentheses, go to the end, close parentheses. Now it works. Now let's copy that formula down, readjust the columns over there, and it looks pretty good. But there is one problem that I see. Do you see how some of the last names are all in capital letters? We come down here to David Olson, for example. His last name is all in caps. I really want for the first letter to be capitalized and the rest in lowercase. To do that, we're going to use a proper function. The proper function does exactly that. It puts the first letter in uppercase and all the remaining letters in lowercase for each word in the text string. So let's go back up here to our original formula in cell E2. We'll go to the beginning of the formula and type proper, open parentheses, go all the way to the end, close parentheses, and enter. Let's copy that formula down now, double click the data fill button, and voila, we've got it. Now the formula seems to be working, except that our instructions were to write this in one formula. As you can see, it took us 4 formulas to get that done. We're now going to copy the formulas in the first few cells and paste them into our last formula. Let's start off with the first name. So I'll click on the first name over here. Up in the formula bar, I will copy that formula, Control C, and then I'll escape. We click over here. The first name is referenced by cell D2. So we come up here and select our D2 reference, and I'm going to type Control V as in Victor, paste that, and enter. So all I did was copy the first name formula and replace the D2 reference in our full name formula. Now we're going to do the same thing with the last name. So we'll click on the last name formula, come up to the formula bar, copy everything except for the equal sign, press Control C, escape, click on our formula in cell E2, highlight C2, because that's where the formula came from, press Control V, and enter. Now this is looking like a pretty complex formula now. The only formula left now is the find formula, so we can go over here to our find formula, copy that or select it, copy it, escape, come over to our formula and find all of the references to B2. There's one of them, so we'll select B2 and click Control V. There's another B2 reference right over here, so we'll select that, Control V again, and enter. We copy that formula all the way down. We don't need these columns anymore, so we'll highlight those columns, come over here, click on the drop-down menu, delete sheet columns, delete. We're done. We come down to the very last one over there, double click, and it goes all the way down to the very bottom. Let's see we've done 1,000 names just like that, and the names came in just fine. Now we have one really impressive formula that would impress any manager. In this exercise we used 5 different functions: the find, left, mid, trim, and proper, all in one formula. Now, I can bet you a nickel that you cannot find one person in 100 Excel users that knows how to do this. These are the types of skills that I teach in the ClientSys courses. I teach you how to get work done. Not just the theoretical stuff, but things that you can use right now in your everyday work. If you take the entire Excel course, I will teach you a skill set that does not exist in the marketplace today. You will blow away just about anyone. In all the courses that I have taught, I can count on one hand the number of people that already knew most of this stuff and have quite a few fingers left over. You will be the Excel expert in your company. However, there is a downside. My course is a hard course. You're going to struggle with it. You'll work many examples like this time and time again so you can burn it into your memory. Some of the concepts are hard to understand, but if you go through the motions to learn it, you will develop a skill set that is beyond belief. So if you're not interested in being the best, don't bother taking this course. To see what others have said about this course, click on the testimonials link on the website. The website's located at www.clientsys.com. That's spelled CLINESYS. These testimonials came from people with many years of experience before they took my course. See what they have to say, and then you should be totally convinced to take the course. If you want to contact me, send me an email at the address on the Contact Us page, or call me at that phone number. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you soon as a course participant.